Welcome, everyone. My name is Erin Velarde, and I'm the founder of Vote, Run, Lead, and we train women to run for office and win. And you are in for a treat for today's masterclass with Miss LaTosha Brown, conversation moderated by no one other than Jehmu Greene. And we, like many organizations, these past few weeks leading up to the November 3rd election are really focusing on getting out the vote. We're going to be providing a series of GOTV trainings, of which this is one. You remember on September 12th, we did the masterclass, the boot camp, of 3 hours of really good training on communications, phone banking. There's going to be some upcoming trainings that we want you to be a part of, and we're going to be activating our alumni base and all of you with tools like Motivote. So I want to just pop over to Motivote. For those of you, we sent you an email actually. And hopefully you all have done that. I'm gonna just do a quick screen share before I turn it over to Jehmu. Motivote and Vote, Run, Lead have teamed up. So this is our platform. When you log on to Motivote, if you have not signed up just yet, you're gonna get an easy page that says pledge to vote. That's the first thing we need you to do is pledge to vote. Then you'll get a kickback email in your inbox, because this is all about privacy and verifying to make sure that you are okay with joining our community on Motivote. And then after that, it is like time to invite friends, right? So many of us in the Vote, Run, Lead community are already registered. We already have our vote plan. We are trying to get to those corners of the 10 or 20 or 30 women that might not have their vote plan, might not have a ride to the polls. And you're going to hear about some of those fantastic strategies about how to do it in person with LaTosha Brown, with her group, Black Voters Matter. But inside the Vote, Run, Lead community, head over to voterunlead.motivote.us so that you can get connected. It's built by 2 women. It's actually really intuitive. I really like it. And it's easy to use. So head on over there. Let me turn it over to Jehmu Greene, who many of you know, a founding board member of Vote, Run, Lead. She's an evangelist for social good, an award-winning media and advocacy strategist, a proud Texan who recently moved back to Austin, with my dismay, from the NYC area. She was a candidate for a DNC chair. She's in her 8th year at Fox News. She's a co-founder of Define American with Jose Antonio Vargas, and has done a bazillion things, one of which makes her uniquely situated to moderate this conversation is she was head of Rock the Vote, where in her leadership, membership grew from about 1,500 to over 1 million young voters. And that, the institution that you see Rock the Vote is today is, of course, in no small part by Jehmu's leadership. So check out her bio, which is on our website. She's done so many things, including her surrogacy for Hillary Clinton, national director of Project Vote, all sorts of good stuff. So Jehmu is going to help us facilitate this conversation, this masterclass with Miss LaTosha Brown, founder of Black Voters Matter. And I will be quiet and chime in for questions from our audience and the chat. So take it away, Jehmu.
Thank you, Erin, and Vote, Run, Lead, and LaTosha for this opportunity. As I was thinking about this conversation, I was so excited because I'm ready to take notes and learn from LaTosha, because y'all, let's talk about for a second what is going on as we get closer to this election. Voter suppression, voter intimidation is nothing new. Erin talked about my time at Rock the Vote. That was 15 years ago. I know 15 years ago, we, a month out from the election, were looking at ways that secretaries of states or different organizations were trying to implement different voter suppression and intimidation tactics. And back then it was severe and concerning and a threat to our democracy. And then you fast forward to where we are now, today. I don't think ever in my political career I would have been in a situation where we are in this country, where you have forces with large platforms actively calling for their supporters to engage in voter suppression. So not just underneath kind of secretly done or sending out flyers with misinformation, but the level of voter suppression and intimidation that certain forces are intending or trying to do has, I'm not going to say has never been greater in this country. We certainly have gone through a time when, through Jim Crow laws and criminality, many voters were suppressed and intimidated, and people were murdered trying to cast their ballot. But certainly in my lifetime, this is the most extreme it's ever been. So the opportunity to get to learn from LaTosha Brown on how we are going to fight back is something that I welcome, and something I certainly will be listening, not just from an inspiration standpoint, but to take away the tools and the vision we will all need to have for this next month, heading into 40 days, heading into November's election. So we're about to get a master class, y'all. We're gonna get a master class from someone who at Vote Run Lead, we certainly consider LaTosha, she's an OG Vote Run Lead member, OG when before Vote Run Lead was even an organization. It was just a project of the White House project, and Aaron and LaTosha and our co-founders, Rhonda and Sharon and Liz, who are also joining us, came together and started this incredible effort to train women to run for office. And certainly LaTosha has gone on to do even more great things. She's an award-winning organizer. She's a philanthropic consultant, a political strategist. Y'all, she's a jazz singer. So she's also been able to do what I've wanted to do. I also wanted to sing and do politics. There's so much I can learn from her. And as the co-founder of Black Voters Matter, she has been building power through a Southern-based civic engagement strategy that played an instrumental role. It is playing an instrumental role all over the country right now, but have to give a shout out for the work that LaTosha and Black Voters Matter did in the 2017 Alabama US Senate race. And we all know, even as a nonpartisan organization, the outcome of that race was to the benefit of humanity. And I think the outcome of that race would not have been the same if it was not for LaTosha Brown. So we are thrilled, excited, pens and paper out. I know we've all got our digital devices. They say retention happens more if you write something down. So for this, maybe get out a pad of paper and put it to pen, because we all need to retain what we are going to hear, and then also be able to engage with LaTosha on. She's going to share her 7 life lessons with us. And I could not be, again, more thrilled to get to participate in this conversation. LaTosha, I know you're busy. I know you are in demand. I know these threats that our democracy is facing, you are on the front lines. And we want to be shoulder to shoulder, arm to arm with you. We want to learn from you. I wish we had more time than we did, because I think we could learn from you for the next 40 days. So thank you for joining us, and welcome back, OG Vote Run Lead.
Thank you so much. Actually, I was telling Aaron, I was like, oh, I should have my t-shirt. For some reason, my t-shirt really shrunk, because certainly I didn't get bigger. So it doesn't fit. So it must have shrunk. I don't know how it shrank, but anyway, I do have my original Vote Run Lead t-shirt. So anyway, I'm really excited to be here. I want us to get grounded. I'm so excited. Before I say anything, I just want to say I'm so excited for the women have joined us here. I hope that I'm able to really just be able to, I'm just going to come to you to share with you all my experiences, the lessons that I've learned through life, but really as being an organizer, because I've got, as women, we wear all kinds of hats. So in the context, I know that many of you all are organizers and many of you are women who seek to run for office, that literally you want to make yourselves available to really be able to service of community. And so there's a couple of lessons that I have learned through the process. Some of them have been, you know, really hard lessons to learn. Matter of fact, I got a couple of scars on my back that that come from learning some of these lessons, but nevertheless, they are all a part of the shaping of who I am. And the work that I do right now. So in getting grounded, you know, I just want to take a moment. I just want us to, if we can all get grounded wherever you are, I just want you to stay where you are. I want you to take a deep breath. Well, the first thing I did right was the day I started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, hold on. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around. Turn me around, ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom's land. You can open your eyes. I just wanted to take a deep breath.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. I wanted to bring the spirit of my ancestors in the room. I wanted to bring the spirit of those that didn't have a lot of money, that didn't have government on their side, that things were looking kind of bleak, y'all. But at the end of the day, they had a song in their heart, they had conviction, and they had the courage, and they had a vision of what they could see, what others couldn't see, right? Because the truth of the matter is, some of us, I would not be sitting here today, right, if there were not some people who hadn't had a vision to see me here. Because when we're talking about the founders of this country, right, when we look back at the founders of this country, they couldn't even see us. Matter of fact, the three of us, they couldn't even see our power. They were so limited in their own vision that all they saw was white men with land, right, that they thought had a right of citizens of this country. But fundamentally, this nation has been shaped by the contributions that women have made. And if this nation is to ever become her full self, right, it will be because of women. It will be because of us. And so I wanted to ground us, you know, in the movement and the music and the sound of the movement, because oftentimes we get cerebral. We think that this is really about the policy and the policy and the politics and who's in office. Fundamentally, y'all, at the very core of what this is about is about the people. And this is about the people. And so what I want to do is there's 7 lessons in life as an organizer that I want to share with you all. Is it really even interesting, even in that song? That's a song that my grandmother taught me. My grandmother was born in 1910 in Alabama. Nellie Gamble, who was my soulmate. I know people got all kinds of soulmates, but my grandmother was my soulmate. And she would sing all the time, right? And she was so close. She would pray so much that my grandma would pray so much that literally when I would, my brother and I would do things, we would wonder if Jesus was going to tell us what we did. Not that we was like, you think Jesus is going to tell her, right? Because Jesus is her best friend, right? She was like, you know, and so in that space, I say that because she was deeply, deeply spiritual, deeply, deeply connected. But she always had a song. I don't care what she was doing. And it's so funny because I have this habit. She could be washing dishes. She could be cooking a cake. She could be sitting down, just getting off the phone. She would sing. She would sing so much and hum so much she wasn't even aware of it. And it's interesting because at the time I would hear those songs and I would think they were sad. They give me absolute life now. Right? I pull and I am still drawing from the strengths of those songs because it came down from her deepest spirit, that they were the songs that, what I say, that came out and up out of the souls of Black folk. And so I wanted to share that because I wanted to ground us in this conversation, to look beyond the politics. Sisters, let's have a conversation. We're talking about a masterclass. What I want to do, I want to share a lesson with you of how, of how I have maneuvered and navigated and continuing like to figure out how to maneuver and navigate being a Black woman living in the deep South in a racist, extremely sexist environment. And I'm still able to have a hope and faith and the determination that we're going to make change. And so, I don't, even as I share this masterclass, I don't propose that, to be honest with you, probably the first lesson is, I don't know if I've ever really, I don't know if I'm the master of anything, right? What I do know is that I show up being my whole authentic self as much as I can, right? Like, and that is my offering to the world, right? Of being who I am. And I can share with you all how much of my life has been concerned about who would get angry with me, that there were people that I experienced in my own piece, right? And thank you for capturing lesson one, show up as your authentic self. That literally, y'all, as y'all know, I got a certain kind of personality, right? And so I would show up in spaces, and so often I wanted to diminish myself so other people will feel comfortable. Because I would find it so that there were people who would have whatever issue, right? Because of the way that I would show up. There were actual people who were close to me that were uncomfortable with my success, right? There were people that were comfortable with me, like, hold on now, we can take a little bit. Matter of fact, we want your gift when it's for us. But who told you to use your gift for yourself, right? Yes, we want you to work hard, yeah, but for our benefit, right? I want you to raise money for my campaign. I literally had a conversation with a mentor that I had raised $50,000 when I was running. And I said, I can raise money. And he literally said to me, who told you to raise money for your campaign? Right. And that's because part of it, what I also had to unravel, and in this lesson one of being your authentic self, I just want to raise pieces around that our entire lives, particularly as women, we are used to trying to contort ourselves to be what the world wants us to be, that we can't show up. I even remember, I don't know if you remember this, Erin, but I remember when I was working with the White House Project in Georgia, and we did this event, and I started in song, and it was interesting because there was one woman that was really excited, but there was one woman that was like, oh my God, I can't believe that she is starting in song, and ran out of the room like, oh my God, like it was so embarrassing because I had broken the protocol, right? But it was authentically who I am. And so, and I bring that fullness, and who's comfortable with it, they're comfortable with it. Who's not comfortable with it, there's absolutely nothing I can do about that. That ain't my business. That's their business. And so the first lesson, I think, as we're doing this, I want us to think about a couple of things. In the lesson of being your authentic self, in order to be your authentic self, you have to know who you are. And so in that, we've got to spend some time as we're doing this work, not being shaped, or literally the shaping of who we are being based on what other people think about us, right? Or having, like, I have to love myself to the extent of others to love me, that literally that I have to be grounded and rooted in who I am. So my first question to you in this seeking your authentic self is, who are you? Some of y'all seen The Lion King. And you remember when Rafiki says, who are you, right? There is a lot of power behind that as we are doing this work, you have to get grounded, because we who believe in freedom shall not rest until it comes. But what it does require, it requires you to be anchored and rooted, just like a tree. When there's a big storm, there's some trees that they're not going anywhere. They've been there 100 years. That's because their roots are deep. And so when I say be your authentic self, I mean that part of what we have to do is, as we're talking about changing the world, that the one thing that we absolutely have some power to change and influence is us. And so we do so much time and energy trying to transform everything around us that we don't spend the time and energy to really be reflective and honest about who we are so that we can transform from the inside out. And the truth of the matter is, I don't care how progressive or conscious we think that we are, we have been steeped in the belly of the beast of all of these images about who women are and who Black people are and who we are, and it impacts us. I'll give you an example. one story I want to share before I move to the second lesson is that I was at the beginning of the year, a couple of years ago, I decided that I was going to be fine by the summertime. Like I was going to wear me a two-piece. And so in order to be fine, I needed to lose 25 pounds. And so in those 25 pounds, what I needed to do is I was going to go on a diet. I hate diets. I know some of y'all are okay. I hate diets because I like food. So it was the beginning of the year, and what I would do is, as I was on this diet, I gave myself cheat days. So Saturday and Sunday would be my cheat day. And so on the weekends, I would eat what I want. I think I read some movie star or something doing that, and I was gonna try to, it ain't work for me. But anyway, I would cheat on the weekend. And so there was a place here in Atlanta called Gladys Knight Chicken and Waffles. And so I went to Gladys Knight Chicken and Waffles. As I was getting there, I was walking and there was a homeless man that was sitting on the stoop. And he had some food, he was eating some food, and I was looking at the food. I was like, ooh, that looks good. I can't wait to go in there and get my chicken. And I spoke to him and went inside, got my food, had these chicken and waffles. Now, mind you, I have a cheat day, so I can't, this was a Sunday. So it was my last cheat day, so I can't buy anything else. So the food was so good, I said, I'm gonna save it, right? I'm gonna save half of it, so when I get home, I can eat. So I saved my food, and as I'm walking out, I see this man and he says, ma'am, can I have your food? Can I have that food? Now, I grew up in the Deep South, and part of the tradition and the belief in my family is whenever anybody asks us for food, I am obligated to give them food. Like, that's how I feel. I really take on, if you ask me for food, I don't care what, I'm going to give you food. I'm going to do my best to give you food, right? And so that's a value that I hold dearly in my family. But he asked me, he was like, can you have my food? Now, this is the same man I just saw eat some chicken wings going in, right? Now here I got my 2 little chicken wings that I can eat. I got a whole nother week before I can eat this. And I was like, so I had the box in my hand and I handed it to him, and I was like, here, you eat better. You probably eat better than me. And when I said that, he looked at me and he said, what do you think I shouldn't? Y'all, I can still feel it. I was so convicted that I couldn't even sleep that night. Now, here I am, Miss Social Justice Activist and Organizer, right? I'm fighting for the people and I'm going to eliminate poverty, right? But I saw that in that moment, what he taught me about myself is that I carried a judgment that I wasn't even aware of. That I'm fundamentally in my mind, because I work every day, that I was deserving of this chicken, this Gladys Knight chicken and waffles, right? And so what I said to him, not even thinking, but it came out of my heart. When I said to him, you eat better than me, that fundamentally what I was saying is I was passing some judgment as if he shouldn't. And he checked me on it, and it changed my life. It not just changed my life for that space, it changed my life on how I show up. I'm like, I thought that I was doing so much of this work out here that I didn't have to do this work on me inside. That I thought because I had already arrived, I was an activist. Shoot, I shut things down. I know stuff. That oppression didn't live in me. And what it pointed to is that day to day, every day, I have to clear myself of these beliefs and these judgments and these oppressions that keep me from really being my whole full self. And so, in being your authentic self, as I move to the next lesson, I just want to say that it's really important that you spend some time, one, getting to know you, getting to know the parts of you that you like, also get to know the parts that you don't like, and not in the space of standing in judgment, but know who you are, right? Knowing who you are. And in that doesn't necessarily say that there's anything wrong with you. It's just saying, for me, I want to show up differently in the world, right? So instead of saying that as a judgment, I was like, you know what? I don't want to carry that belief. So I need to do some work on me so I can really unravel so that I can show up differently in the world. The second lesson I want to share is, particularly for women, I want to share the power of the ask. That, there's a Bible verse that my grandmother used to talk about. She was like, ask and ye shall be given. And I say that because oftentimes, because of the power dynamics, we don't ask for what it is that we really want. There is an art in the ask. And this is what I mean. Sometimes what we're asking for is not really what we want or what we need, but we think that's what we should be asking for. right? Let me just ask for this because that's what they'll give me. Or let me just ask for this because that's not offensive, but not necessarily ask for what it is that we want. And so I'm saying this as an organizer coming out of this context, right? That I had to learn how to ask. I had to learn how to ask for those things that I needed. But in order to even develop the skill of the art of the ask, is I fundamentally had to really start realizing and saying, do I really want that? Do I really need that? Right? Having those questions with myself so that my asks were aligning up with the opportunity. I think part of the way that I'm able to raise money, and quite frankly, I've been very successful at raising money for causes and organizations and those things, is not because I come from money. I mean, a lot of my adult life, I've been broke, y'all, right? So early on, and I think once I learned how to ask, I start seeing things shift. I start asking for what I wanted and what I felt that was need. But the key, the magic in the art of the ask is where there is alignment. What does that mean? That fundamentally, sometimes what we get caught up in is where we're looking for agreement. I'm going to ask you for what it is that I want. But in the power of the ask is the goal is, let me take time and pay enough attention, which is going to lead us to our third lesson. Let me take time and literally be able to zone in to really identify what it is that you need, what it is that I want. And then where there is alignment, that is where you're successful. When you're asking for what it is that you really need, and there's an alignment with what the request is. So for example, if and sometimes it's intuitive, right? That's a lesson that I'll get to later, but sometimes it's intuitive that one, you have to really be so in tune to what is being said, what is being communicated to you, what is not being communicated to you, that you're getting clear about what it is that whoever it is that you're negotiating with, that what it is that they want, right? And then clear about what you're willing to give and what is it that you need. And that the point of magic is when there's alignment and when that comes together, right? And so it is a win-win for both.
LaTosha, I got an ask. I have to ask. I know the almost 100 folks who are with us, they're definitely gonna, I'm speechless after the song and being grounded and the lesson 1, lesson 2, the power of the ask. We want to make sure we get all of these 7 lessons in and get some questions in. And so maybe thinking, how are the ways that we can really tackle these 7? Are there groupings of them that come together just so that we keep, we're able to cover all of these in this very condensed time? And I know we started later, so that's my ask, we want to get it all, LaTosha, within this time period.
So thank you for that. So thank you with the time, because we do. So what I will do is let me put them in. So I did 2, so we got 5 more left. So let me do 2, we do the last one, right? And I'll try to integrate them in the space of and try to work through them real quickly. Is that okay? So let me work through them quickly instead of spending so much time on each one, and then we can delve into around the questions because I want to have engagement. The third thing, which I had alluded to, listen. That's it. Listen. That part of half of the battle is we're not listening. We don't listen each other. And I didn't say, if you notice, there was not a conjunction. I did not say listen to each other, right? We don't listen each other. Like that there is an active listening. Sometimes we're in conversations with folks. I know I've done it before and I'm listening to them. I hear them, right? But I want to make a point so bad, right, that I will start forming my argument and not truly listen. So I think that one of the things that we have to do is learn how to listen each other. Listen to the women around you, listen to the communities that you're organizing. If you humble yourself enough to listen, you'll be able to learn in a process of what will make it effective. If something that you're doing is not working, then listen. Use the power of listening to figure out what is the need. I'll go to the next one. The next one is let your gut be your guide. That if it don't feel right, it ain't right. It's just not. And you don't have to know all the answers around that. And sometimes we will know that it doesn't feel right, but we'll just hammer through anyway. And then we're like, I know I shouldn't have done that. Your gut will not lead you wrong. Check in with your gut. Do a gut check, right? To check in with, let your gut be your guide. I think that is important as part of the listening and the gut. So there's always a balance of what you're hearing and where it resonates. Because we can hear with our heart, We hear with our mind, but we also hear with our spirit. So let your gut be your guide. In addition to that, I want to share that passion and patience will propel you. Mm-hmm. Passion and patience will propel you and actually move you towards power, right? But passion and patience, that part of whatever your passion, what you're passionate about, don't move away from it, right? But also operate in the expectation that other people are not just going, you got that passion, right? And then sometimes we get frustrated, like, I don't see why you don't care about this spotted owl like I care about it. That's your passion. And so you've got to have the passion, but also have the patience for other people to catch up with you by giving them grace and space. That fundamentally, that as we're being organizers, like, yes, our passion will propel us, but we've got to develop the discipline around patience so that we have space and grace for others to unfold, that we can unfold in that process and that literally can be engaged in it. The next one that I want to share is that it's important that you recognize that the goodness is in the ground. What does that mean? Goodness is in the ground. Everything that nourishes us comes out of the ground, y'all. Literally from the trees and the plants that give us air and oxygen to the water that comes up and nourishes our body and our spirit to the food that we eat, right? And fundamentally, goodness is on the ground. And so what does that mean? That if we are doing organized and political base building work, it is the ground. That is where you till the soil, not up at the top. Like a lot of times we want to go to the events and talk to the elected officials and the political folks. They're great. We need to have a relationship with them. But where your power is on the ground, because goodness comes out of the ground. I also want to share in this space that, this is really more kind of personal. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because it's kind of like, it's not really this is a bonus. I'm not gonna call this a tip, but this is kind of like a bonus. Your gift will make room for you. That part of me singing, right, is I had to recognize it took me years. I used to separate me being an organizer. I played in a band, had a girls group called Unique for a number of years. That's how I paid for college, actually, called Unique, and would always do my band music stuff. And then I would do my organizing on this side because what I thought was I needed to separate those two worlds, right? And it was a longer story. We won't have enough time, but it was a longer story I was in Thailand. I was in Southeastern Asia. And everywhere we went, I had been on I wouldn't sing. I got frustrated about Hurricane Katrina and decided I wasn't gonna sing anymore. I don't know why I thought that, but I did. And so, and everywhere we would go, people would walk up to me and ask me to sing. And I was like, and I got frustrated. And I was on the airplane in Thailand, in Bangkok. And I was like, what? They keep walking up. They just think all Black people can sing. She was like, obviously not, because half of us are Black and they ain't ask us that. I was like, well, okay, well, that's a point. And she said, don't you know, baby, your gift will make room for you. They see the gift. They see your gifting. So those of you that are artists, those of you that are singers, those of you that are writers, use your gift as a part of the work that you're doing. It will make room for you as you are organizing. No matter where you go, don't separate or compartmentalize who you are. Stand in it. Matter of fact, fall in it. You will recognize that will be your power. I can be at Harvard teaching a lecture. I can be in the street corner. I ain't gonna sing. I can be in the White House and I might break out in the song just because I feel like it, right? And what it does, part of standing in my gifts allows me to be my authentic self, right? All those other lessons, it creates space and grace for myself to be that. So your gift will make room for you. The next lesson is, I want to do an exercise real quick, because I know we have a lot of time, but I want everybody to close your eyes. Close your eyes. My question to you is, imagine America without racism and sexism. Now open your eyes. I can't see you all, but how many of you all can actually see something? No matter where I go, 99% of people can't see anything. It's literally, quite frankly, hard for me to see that. I can't even see an America without sexism and racism oftentimes. I'm much better at it because I ask myself that question every day. Let me tell you why it's important to ask that question and why it's important for us to have why I'm saying this lesson, which I think is the most important lesson of the radical reimagining we have to have a radical reimagining of this nation. That there is nothing that's been created from the cell phone to this, the cell phone to this water to this tube of lipstick, that somebody did not envision it first before it was created and brought into the physical world. How in the world are we going to create a nation without racism and sexism, and we can't even envision it? We are the envisioners of that. If in order for that to take place, we have got to not just spend time doing the work, because folks are okay with women doing work, right? They're okay with us doing work, but we also have to ground ourselves in the space of really being able to radically reimagine every single system that is in this country. And then the final thing, I think I'm at 7. Aren't I at 7? Okay. The final thing is, this is not going to seem sexy, but I think I think you'll get the sense. Power organized is power realized. That power is dispersed at any moment. Like, I have electricity in my house. That was already existence. Somebody just found a way to create a conduit for electricity. Well, I guess it was Edison, right? Found a way to be a conduit to really be able to tap into the energy that was already there. It's already there. Just like I think our win is already there. We've just got to take the time to really be able to organize that power so that we can actually realize that power. And in doing that, the last thing I'll say related to that, in doing that, we have to be comfortable with power, women. That we can't back away with not being comfortable. How are we going to go after power? We're not comfortable with it. But we also have to reframe, as I'm talking about radical reimagining, what power is. In many ways, this culture has taught us that power is dominance, and power is this bully framework, that it is dominance, and power is those who can make others do what they want to. Those of us that are women, we know that power is also in love. That power is in nurturing. Power is in listening. Power is literally in when that little baby is running the household. Like, it's not about control, because I know, Aaron, you are not running your household. I know who runs your household. I know the little person that runs your household, right? But fundamentally, literally being able to surrender to that and surrender to that love is, I think, one of the most powerful forms of power on this earth. And instead of us moving away from that as women, let's lean into it, because men would want us to think that the ways of our being is not power, that their dominance is that is power. No, the ways of our being is the power, and it will transform the world. With that, I'm going to stop because we can engage in some questions. So I'll stop right there.
LaTosha, whoa, I needed that. I needed that. Yesterday was tough. As a Black woman, yesterday was really hard. Breonna Taylor, say her name. They said she will not get justice. Thank you for showing up like that today, when we are seeing, one party block voters at early voting sites already. How do we show up like you showed up today after yesterday for that, when we are seeing the Postal Service, one of the most trusted institutions in the country, send misinformation to voters? How do we show up like you just did for that? That is the next 40 days for us. What is about to be thrown from a voter intimidation suppression standpoint? The son of our president got on air and asked people to join an army, to enlist in an army to protect his position. How do we show up? And how do we not just show up with your energy, but show up with the expertise and really that fight that you just, I needed this. I really personally needed this today. I didn't know how I was gonna make it through today, so thank you. And we're gonna have to show up like you on each of these fronts. Please help us on these voter intimidation tactics. What do we do?
So let me tell you how I think when we're talking about showing up, that I'm sitting here, we are both sitting here, sister. We are both the hope and the dream of a slave. Fundamentally, there was somebody on the plantation that had chains, that had been raped, that was treated, dehumanized, and said, my children gonna be free. I don't care. And there was somebody saying, no, we've been slaves for, the institution of slavery lasts for 200 years. So imagine I'm in the first 10 years of it, right? There's 190 more years. Like, think about that, y'all. That means if right now, by the year 2200, right? I don't even know what they're going to call it there. 2020, I don't know what they're going to call it. But at any rate, that literally, but somebody had a vision that in the midst of all that was going on, had the audacity to believe. Let's talk about Harriet Tubman. People talk about Harriet Tubman. But at the end of the day, this sister, we said, oh, we need education. Really? She's not formally educated. She couldn't even read or write. Right. But at the end of the day, this is a woman had a $50,000 bounty on her head back then. $50,000 bounty right now. I don't know anybody with a $50,000 bounty. That's a lot of money. That's almost $500,000 if you equate what it was at that time. This was a woman that fundamentally wound up leading the military, became the leader of the military to really go and free enslaved Africans in South Carolina. Do you think that she cared about, that she was excited by the U.S. Army after being enslaved? No, what she was tactical. She had a vision and she was committed to something greater. That yes, my politics, I might handle, but my spirit, you can't break my spirit. And when I don't have nothing else, and the only thing that I have is my spirit and my hope and my belief that we're gonna change, that's all I got. And sometimes that's all we got, y'all. And I'm raising that because I think it's important for us to ground in the very thing that men want us to move away from. They want us to move away from our intuition, right? You're not a good leader if you move for your intuition. You got to be logical, right? You can't be emotional. And I'm thinking to myself, it's a whole bunch of folks locked up in jail and men in a heartbeat will fight. What are you talking about? Like, what you mean? You fighting and shooting each other out and having something called wars? That's pretty damn emotional. You done create a whole industry to kill folks, right? Based on you, this is how we gonna resolve stuff. But then what they'll tell us is don't be emotional. So we gonna come to the process and I'm not gonna be emotional. No, I use my emotion. I use my passion. I use my love. I use my fear. I use my badassness whenever I can to pull from when I don't have anything else to pull from. And so in this moment, what I think is really important, kind of what you were saying, sister, that I think that is important for us to do is that in this moment, it is really important for us to get grounded and centered, but really know what time it is. Until the pain to change, right, the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain to change, we don't change. Listen to what I'm saying. Until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain to change, we won't change. The bottom line is before Trump, there were 38 million people that were in poverty. Before Trump, women were paid 68 cents on the dollar to their male counterparts. Before Trump, now Trump got a whole nother element. Let me not say he is a whole nother element, but my point is America wasn't like the superstar that we like to say she was prior to Trump going in office, right? And I'm raising that because in the context of we needed change, that fundamentally sometimes the discomfort in the moment is the opportunity from us to turn from coal to diamonds. So if you know how diamonds are created, that a piece of coal is under extreme pressure over time turns into a diamond. If you know how glass is created, you know that glass is actually sand that has been compacted under great pressure. Over time, it turns to glass. What does a diamond and glass have in common? They both have clarity. That both of them are clear. And so in this moment, what we should do is take this pressure to ground and get clear. Like, let's have clarity of who we are, clarity of how we want to go forward and work like hell. It doesn't matter. Like, you can't look to the left, you can't look to the right, you got to stay focused, women. And so in this moment, am I in pain? Absolutely. Have I cried? Have I felt fearful and scared? Absolutely, right? It is all of those things that let me know that I am alive. But while I hold that, I also hold this thing called hope. Because if you ain't fearful, you don't need no hope. If you know all the answers, you don't need any hope, right? I have to pull from this thing that's called hope and this vision and to just believe fundamentally that if I show up, I am in my part of the race in the relay, that I'm going to move the baton closer and that the next generation is going to take it. And so I think sometimes we have to be grounded in something that we don't see, something that is kind of our faith. We have to be grounded in this radical reimagining of we want the world to look like. If we just focus in what is here now, we'll be stuck like in just seeing that space. But let's in that moment, let this pressure give us greater clarity of where we're trying to go and then really move like hell to get there.
I know, Erin, you're tracking some questions.
A lot of questions. I'm going to throw a couple at you, Jehmu, and your beautiful job is to turn them into a couple questions. So, in places where there's a couple themes. One, there's a big one on fear and this voter intimidation, which thank you for sharing. But this idea of, the sort of the mail-in ballots and the safety of that is one question, particularly in places in red states where, Black voters are getting a higher level of intimidation, not being counted, and sort of like what is your, that's one. Another one is along those lines in red states, this intimidation, how do we kind of keep that up? How do we keep that energy up? Young Black voters, the generational divides is another question. And I just want to make sure, those are, there's a lot of that kind of, there's a lot of the tactical on the ground right now, like what are you telling people to do kind of questions.
Okay. And if I could just kind of combine that with the fact that there is a pandemic facing and impacting communities of color in much higher rates. And so from a vote by mail standpoint, you've got this fear, are Black voters supposed to vote by mail to protect themselves and their lives and their families? Or are we supposed to put on a mask and stand in those lines and do that? And how to make those connections generationally? Like, what is Black voters matter? What is the charge? Whether you're young or old, what should we do to do this right, to keep our lives and this democracy safe?
So what we've been doing is we've been telling people, I don't think that is, for us, we're not saying that it's a right choice. We're saying that people have choices and we should give them the information to make whatever's going to be the right decision for them, right? And so what we've been doing is telling people there are several choices, right? Because, and one, there is mail-in voting. There are people who have compromised systems. I had COVID-19. My first time actually getting out to organize, I caught COVID-19. I was scared to death. The beauty of, I'm grateful that I had a mild case of it, but y'all, I was really scared. It was really nerve-wracking. And we think it's a false choice to make people think that they have to put their health at risk or either to vote. So those who want to use the process of mailing, we still encourage them to try to figure out how to minimize the possible damage and the information around it. So the way we're talking to people, we say if you're doing mail-in ballots, that you've got to mail in early, that you got to be in the first round, that you got to track your ballot. Let us know. Many people, they can actually track their ballot depending on where they live. But to go on in the mail, a lot of the folks were saying that if you don't trust the Postal Service and you're going to do an absentee ballot, go take your ballot yourself. Deliver your ballot in person, hand deliver it, so that as another element of really trusting that your ballot gets delivered. The second thing that we're telling folks is those that want to vote in person, we're saying make a vote plan, right? And go early. The fundamental piece that we think is going to minimize, because there's only so much of this process we're going to be able to control, is that we've got to tell people to vote early, to give them the information. They can, thank you, Ballotrax, thank you. Looking to for vote tracking. If you go to Ballotrax, that's a wonderful, thank you, Phyllis, for that resource. To be able to track your vote early so you can track your vote, right? We're also that to vote, you really have to vote early. Like that's going to just minimize as much of the process as we can control as possible. We've been doing a number of things. One, as we've been educating folks on how to vote, because this election is the first time I've ever gotten a number of calls of people like, well, I don't know how to vote. Like, what do I do? And these are people who have voted before, right? So I'm not just saying like new voters, they're like confused about the process. And so one, just how do you do absentee ballot voting? Right, or mail-in voting. We've been giving that information to millions of folks. Sending out in text messaging, sending out in our phone banking, and our text parties, and we're doing a massive mailing. Just today, we're actually doing a massive mailing to the 200,000 people in Georgia who have been dropped from the voting rolls, right, to let them know what to do. And so the quick version of what we can do now is, one, you've got to track your vote. Make sure that you vote early if you're doing mail-in voting. If you are voting in person, it is really important that you go early, that you try to go on days, particularly weekdays in the early process. Weekdays seem to have a different kind of spread out. Early mornings, there's like flood times. They can almost tell you the early morning, the midday, and that late rush, there are rushes. If you go in between those times, if you go like between 11 like 11 to noon, or like particularly the slowest time actually is right after lunch, because a lot of people come to vote on their lunch. They go early, they vote on lunch. If you go really between like the lunch hours, that's like the low. Even the people in the poll workers, they can tell you, they know when the rushes are coming. That's when the rushes. I think that we're probably going to have a steady flow this entire year, but I think that what you can do is vote during those times that can minimize, but you have to show up and be socially distanced. Show up with a space. I'll tell you one of the things I did, because in the line that I was in, people were not socially distanced, and it was getting on my nerves so bad. I was like, and this was right before I caught COVID, and I was just like paranoid. I took my chair, my outdoor chair, and it was like my marker. Like, this is my barrier right here. I'm gonna stand right here, and my chair was behind me, and it created space in a way that I didn't have to constantly be telling people to move or X, Y, Z. So I think, and then having your mask, for the most part, because many times you're outside or you're in open spaces, I think that it's pretty safe. I think it's actually pretty safe to be able to vote in person if you take the right precautions. And so in many ways, we have been encouraging folks, if they can, to vote in person, but we also have to be mindful that everybody does not have the same kind of health circumstances and situations. So because of that, we're supporting all of those elements. I do want to say the energize and the young voters piece, I'm gonna try to speak to that real quickly, that part of what we have to do in terms of why young voters are turned off from the process, because they don't see the connectivity. Right. And I mean, do we blame them? The truth of the matter is we get frustrated with the process ourselves. So instead of I'll just say our quick strategy, what we do with Black Voters Matter is we're honest with folks. That when people tell us on the street that, well, I don't want to vote because I don't think my vote counts, we don't try to evangelize them. It's kind of like somebody that's in a religion and they tell you you're wrong if you don't believe that religion, right? But that we don't try to evangelize them. What we do is we say, we understand, we affirm their feelings. We understand how you feel that way. Matter of fact, the truth of the matter is I felt that way myself too, right? But tell me what it is that you care about. I have never met a person that didn't care about anything. And they're getting a conversation about what it is that they care about. And then you listen to them like, okay, you care about that. What is it that you want to see? Oh, well, I want to see them stop locking folk up because whatever. I was like, you know who does that? Oh, it's the DA or the judge. Do you know how the DA gets in position? Right? They get voted in. And so what it does, the bottom line is what it does is I make a connection to what it is that they care about on fundamentally breaking it down to how them voting is a connection to that, how voting impacts that. And in that process, being honest with them about the limitations of voting. We say it. I've dedicated my entire life in some form or fashion in doing voting, participation work. But I tell them, voting is not the panacea of everything. Like when folks say something happens, oh, just go vote, that's almost disrespectful, right? Because it's not true, it's not authentic. So the conversation we have is, we say voting is not going to solve every single problem, but what we do know is that voting is a form of power. And at the end of the day, when our communities are in need, we cannot afford to leave even an iota of anything on the table. We're trying to take all the power we can get to advance our communities, and that has a different kind of resignation. And the last thing I'll say is, particularly in terms of energizing young voters, what I notice is that oftentimes when we're talking about politics, we're talking about either the candidates or the political parties. I don't know about y'all, but I'm from the deep South. I've had many occasions to vote for folks that I didn't even like, right? That I wasn't particularly excited about, right? But it was a tactical strategy for me around who am I going to vote for that's going to actually provide the most, reduce the harm in my community. So it's a tactical strategy. And so we tell folks that. We say it's not about the Democrats or the Republicans. It's not about this candidate or that candidate that's going to come and save you. You know who this is about? This is about you. You matter. And I don't know about you, but LaTosha Brown, if any decision is going to be made about LaTosha Brown, she need to be a part of that decision-making process. Are you okay with people making decisions about you that you don't have any impact with it? If that, I understand. But if so, this is one way for you to have influence and impact. So we ground in the conversations on not telling them that they're wrong, but listen. Remember the lessons? Listening to them, and literally being able to help break down, demystify the process. Be honest with them about the limitations of voting, right? Stop telling folks that voting gonna solve everything, because it ain't, right? Be honest with them about the limitations of voting, but also help connect them to the true power and understanding the leverage of power that goes with voting.
Great tips. Aaron, Wave, are we out of time?
We're following LaTosha's schedule. We have had a 0 drop in participants, so I think people are
hanging on to every word. I know we started off talking about voter intimidation and some of these suppression tactics, you know, on election day leading up. I mean, it's election day now. People are voting now by mail. What resources are you able to give us as far as if we encounter a problem, you know, where are the lawyers? Is it 1-800 number? How can we tap into resources to protect the vote on the ground as it's happening and being confronted right now? Is that, are those resources put together and packaged?
So there's a couple of things. So let me say this. So one of the things that Black Voters Matter does is that we support the capacity building with the BVM, Black Voters Matter Capacity Building Institute. We support the capacity building of Black-led grassroots groups. So if you have ladies on this phone who have organizations or groups, particularly if you're in our states, we're in most of the states in the South and in Pennsylvania and Michigan, and we do some spot work as well in cities, in some communities like Minnesota, Minneapolis, we're in Houston. We're getting ready to do some work in Dallas, and St. Louis, and there's somewhere else I'm missing. But the bottom line is that we support grassroots groups. So if you're with an organization that's doing some power building work and you want some support to actually help build and mobilize a base, reach out to us, blackvotersmatterfund.org. And we would love to connect and see how we can support you. Secondly, is if you're concerned about kind of there's some people, there are a lot of organizations that are doing voter protection work. 1-866-OUR-VOTE is always the hotline that you can call, 1-866-OUR-VOTE. But we're also organizations like ours that we're developing starting in October next week. We're bringing on a legal a legal advisor who is building out a voter protection piece for us in our organization. So for the next 30 days, we'll also have a voter protection piece. But there are great organizations like Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, the ACLU, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Advancement Project. Those groups have a tremendous amount of tools and resources that you can connect to, particularly around voter suppression, if you want to use some of the work and some of the toolkits in the work that you're doing in your communities. And I do have, Danita's going to kill me, so I do have about 2 more minutes, and so she is, I am on lock.
I know, I'm just going to take moderator's prerogative here and ask you if you can send us out with the spirit you brought us in with. That just, I need to wake up to that every day and go to bed, do it every night. So thank you, LaTosha, for filling our hearts, filling our souls, filling our minds.
Thank you. Let me say this to you and all the women that are on here. If there's one thing that's just coming to my spirit to share this now, is that women, you are whole and complete. There is nothing left to do but be. That the whole world will tell you that there's something wrong with you, there's some deficiency. Yeah, hell, I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna keep making mistakes. I'm gonna make a whole lot of mistakes probably today, right? But that has nothing to do with my value of who I am. You are whole and complete, and operate from that perspective. How will you show up in the world if you believe that, right? It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Perfection is, have you ever made anything perfect? I've never eaten an apple that was perfect. Like there's nothing, like it's a false construct, right? But the bottom line is who you are and your whole authentic being, you are whole and complete. And so with that, I would say that we all have a light inside of us, and we can be a light unto the world, that fundamentally right now the world needs us. It's not a matter of how we're gonna make them act right. We gotta move them men out the way. They done ran the world long enough, right? And you see where they done got us. It's time for y'all to go sit down somewhere, right? And so in order to do that, we've got to step into these spaces of leadership. We don't need their permission. We don't need them to wait till they move out the way. We can move them out the way. If we collectively work together, they can move out the way, and we can bring the fullness of who we are, right? And the difference of who we are and who we will be, because they need us too, right? Even whether they know it or not, they do, right? And so fundamentally, it's important for us to really, in that space, in all that I've shared, in your authentic self, to be this light into the world. So I am going to leave with Fannie Lou Hamer's favorite song of how they found her, and also happen to be my grandmother, who I will call her out because I'm so feeling her spirit, Nellie Farr Gamble, today. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Y'all go on and be a light in the world. Your little light can shine. It can actually shift and disrupt a big dark room, just a little bit of light. So I believe that our light, if we like literally just shine our light, that the world has nothing else to do but to change. So thank you, sisters, for all of the work that you all are doing. Thank you for bringing this vision. Those of you that are on this call, you are here. It is not by accident. You're here for this moment, right? To be reminded. Like I'm not telling you anything y'all don't know already. Right. Everything that I'm saying is all I'm here is a messenger to remind you of who you are. So peace and blessings. Please follow me, y'all. I'm trying to get my IG game up. So please follow me on IG.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your handle? What's your handle?
My handle is Ms. LaTosha Brown, MSLATOSHA Brown, Miss LaTosha Brown. So we're getting ready to go on the road, and the blackest bus in America. So look out for us. We'll be doing we'll be doing updates on Black Voters Matter Fund on our Facebook page and all of our social media. So keep fighting, keep being. When we work together, we win.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, LaTosha. I know you have to go. Thank you, Jehmu, so much for moderating this conversation. I appreciate you very much. Love to both of you. You are going to get resources. I know we threw out a couple of things. The chat had a couple of resources in it to track your ballot. Some of the questions that didn't get answered that were really tactical, we're going to make sure that you get those questions answered. We're going to pull together I think it was actually 9 life lessons plus a few pro tips thrown in there. We'll make sure you get that as well. One of the things that didn't get answered, Jehmu, was around like the phone banking. Right now there's a lot of phone banking, there's a lot of texting, there's a lot of noise. And I thought, you with your expertise, if you could just share a little bit of your insights on, is the phone banking worth it? Is the texting worth it? Is the talking to real voters? Like, what is the best way to get through to folks?
So definitely from a, quantitative data researched perspective, peer-to-peer outreach is the most important. And the more intimate that outreach it is going to be most impactful. Now, we are in a pandemic, so that intimacy is harder, but maybe instead of all texts, pick up the phone and have a conversation. In a pandemic, that human connection is even more important than ever before. And so it may not be that you're having, face-to-face conversation, but I've gotten so much joy and just like motivation from having old school phone conversations. So let's not forget that you can connect in ways using technology that are more intimate, and certainly not assuming that the people in your immediate circle, I'll tell you, there are times I have not voted. I've confessed that in this election. There are times I have not voted. And so never assume that your immediate circle is, all ready to go, that they have all of those choices that LaTosha talked about. Get the information and deliver it to not just your immediate circle, and then draw, like when we do our fundraising circles, and it grows out, get your immediate circle locked down, do some intimate one-on-one peer-to-peer outreach, then we'll draw that other circle, do some intimate, maybe there's some text in there. Maybe you text and you say, you ask if they've registered to vote, you ask if they've made their plan to vote, and then you pick up the phone and you actually confirm. But certainly the lack of phone banking in person, but also technology that has allowed me to get, I think maybe this morning, 20 text messages from strangers in different campaigns. People are being flooded with that. So think about how your individual, unique outreach to them peer-to-peer is going to be a lot more intimate.
Love it. Thank you. Yep. Thank you so much. That's perfect. And I think one of the tools, and we're thinking as we roll out some of this Motivate stuff, you can personalize it. So if you're feeling like that's overwhelming, we can help you in the Motivate tool to actually personalize some of these correspondence that go out, and it's your network of folks. So Jehmu is right on point. Thank you, everyone.